Hey guys, welcome to the Muse Chasers podcast. My name is Mike Neal, and today we have I gotta unmute him. Jean-Pierre, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you so much for getting up extra early to do this with me, man. I appreciate that.
Definitely, no problem. Glad I could get on.
Well, you wear so many different hats, man. How did you get this huge hat collection, man?
I have a lot of passion for things, and when it's something that I have passion for, I really go all in. And I study the history, I practice it. Sometimes go to school for it if I can. So I think I'm a man full of passion that loves to learn new things and express myself in different ways. So I think that's what really keeps me driven and lets me do so many things.
Now, I don't even really know where to start. Let's start off with the acting. How long have you been acting?
Quite a long time. I started in high school, actually. So that was probably like 99, 2000, probably around there is when I really started taking drama in high school and performing in plays. And, I've done like little bits on commercials, stuff like that at that time. And then just kind of expanded once I went to college. I studied radio, TV, and film. So I worked at my college radio station, got an agent, acting in that way, doing extra work and kind of getting my feet wet and just kind of, moving more and more forward. So I think just my love for performance started in junior high. That's when I first joined choir because my counselor said, oh, you should do something extracurricular and kind of get outside of your box and, something that's different. So I started performing on stage in choir, and that kind of just expanded over time as I went to school.
Okay, I didn't even know you sung. So I guess that's another hat you're wearing.
Yeah.
Now, but you've been in a couple of films, haven't you? I know you were in Ford versus Ferrari.
Correct. My most recent big feature film was Ford versus Ferrari. I was one of the main Ferrari guys in the movie. I was a factory worker for Ferrari at the beginning of the film when Ford travels to Italy to purchase Ferrari, which was supposed to happen as well, and it didn't end up happening. But yeah, I did a big scene with John Bernthal in that part of the film, and then later they called me back to do the pit crew for Ferrari for the Le Mans race. So I shot for about 2 months on that movie. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of random, actually. I wasn't doing acting for a little bit. I'd say a good 5-year hiatus where I was doing stand-up comedy a little more and focusing on my music. And I decided to quit my day job because I was just kind of fed up. I'd worked there for 10 years and not really moved to where I wanted to. And I was like, you know what? I need to quit this. And the day I decided to leave and chose my final date, 2 days later, I get a call from casting. They said, hey, we found you on LA Casting. You look real Italian. Are you interested in this period piece? And I was like, oh, sure. Sounds fun. And they kept calling me back and were like, hey, do you know about cars? And I was like, yeah, I actually have done a lot of work on my own car and I'm pretty familiar with the ins and outs of vehicles. That's great. Do you speak Italian? Yeah, I speak Italian fluently, actually. Oh, that's even better. So, it was kind of like they kept asking me questions. And eventually I went in. It was supposed to be like a smaller featured part. And then they just kept bumping me up in the movie and using me a lot. I got directed by James Mangold. Him and the ADs and the whole crew knew my name. So it was great to be called upon that entire movie, and did stuff in relation to Matt Damon and Christian Bale as well. So it was a wonderful experience for an actor. It actually reinvigorated my love for acting since I took kind of a hiatus from it. I really jumped back into it, started doing more commercials and indie films and TV shows. So I definitely started, and like I said, reinvigorated my love for acting, and I really started pursuing it, more vigorously.
I heard you say that you had quit a job. Was that your Disney job?
That's correct. Yeah, I worked at Disneyland for about 10 years.
Yeah, well, the reason I asked that is because I come across this album that you had made, and I didn't really have time to listen to all of it, but it's kind of a concept to the album. Do you mind talking about that?
No, not at all. Yeah, that was a big passion project for me. So I worked at Disneyland for 10 years. Within the first, I'd say 6 months, I really started to see how the company worked, and not to say it's like the worst company in the world, because I worked with wonderful people. I met some of my lifelong friends, but the company doesn't exactly treat their employees the best, or pay the best. And the level of stress and certain things you deal with, it can take a toll on you. So eventually I wrote an entire rap album about Disney called the Mocky Mouse LP. And that's free. You can download it and check it out on Bandcamp. It's on my website, www.mcpr.com. And basically, I wrote all my frustrations out in that album. What it's really like to work there, what it's like to deal with the company, what it's like to deal with the guests, and just how they make you feel really undervalued and appreciated most of the time. And that, I think one of the reasons I stayed so long at that job was because, sadly, I'm an abuse victim from my family, and you tend to be comfortable in situations that are similar to what you're used to. So I think I got used to Disney being the way it was because I was used to it in my home environment. But yeah, the album basically was me expressing myself and what it's like, and some of it's humorous, depending on what tracks you listen to, and then others are a little more serious. But I definitely use a lot of wordplay with, a lot of the Disney stuff. And I wanted to release it for free because I sampled some of Disney's music. So, obviously that's copyright issues. I used the Haunted Mansion. I chopped it up and made a rap beat out of that. I used the Electrical Parade music and chopped it up and made a rap beat out of that. So yeah, it was really popular. I would just kind of sold it to my coworkers and different people while I was working there. And it's funny because I was a little worried that it might get into the hands of maybe management or the higher ups in the company, because people are very, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say like backstabbing at the company. Like they will do anything to move up in that company. And the name has such a brand, and it's so cemented in people's minds that they honestly, they go a little crazy when they work there. They really think it's their life, and they will do whatever they can to like move forward in that company. But surprisingly, I think it was so creative and so honest and authentic about what it's like that nobody really like snitched on me or said I did anything like that. So I never really got any consequences for speaking what I spoke on the album. So yeah, the whole concept is all about Disney. I sampled some stuff. I made some original music on there, and I wrote the whole thing. And like I said, it's just expressive about what it's really like. And I think it gives you a really insider's look at what it's like to work for that company in different capacities. You know what I mean? Like working at the theme park is obviously different than working at the movie studio and different things like that. So I think it gave some real insight of what it's like to work at the park, because even the loyal Disney people who are lifers and there forever agreed with the stuff I said on the album. So
I just say that's so cool that you're like, you know what? I don't like my job, and I'm gonna make a whole entire album about it, and I'm gonna share it with my coworkers so they can tell me how much they don't like this job.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've always been a rebel at heart. One of the biggest things about going through abuse is I think you realize when you see other forms of that abuse in different areas, and especially since I felt so helpless in my abusive situation, I think I learned to express myself as I couldn't in my own household outside of that environment. So that's why I think I notice forms of abuse in different areas, and I kind of pursue them and attack them a little more. So.
Now, you said you do stand-up comedy as well. I mean, how did you get into doing that?
So I think really at a very young age, I gravitated towards music and comedy a lot. My parents would let me stay up and watch Johnny Carson and Saturday Night Live when I was very young, and I really watched a lot of those people and imitated them. I always call myself a regurgitator or an imitator, because when I was really little, I used to like do all of Michael Jackson's dance moves. I loved imitating him, and the comedians I saw, like Groucho Marx. My mom said that when I was really young, I used to like imitate Groucho Marx and walk around and do impressions. And I learned a lot of impressions from my favorite comedians on Saturday Night Live. So just like for some reason, comedy really spoke to me. And I even in high school, I was writing little skits on my own, even though I took drama and stuff, and I performed some of them. And I even performed at my senior talent show. I always wanted to do stand-up because I had heard that all the comedians I liked, did stand-up. So I started doing stand-up when I was 18 years old. As soon as I got out of high school and I went to college, I chose my college specifically because they offered a stand-up comedy class, and I always wanted to do stand-up comedy. So I went to the college. My first semester, I took the stand-up comedy class. We formed a little group of guys who were in the class, and we just hit all the comedy clubs in LA. We spent probably a few years just doing the circuit, honing our craft, material, all that. And yeah, I kept doing it and kept writing. I even have, speaking of Disney again, one of my best comedy routines came from the stress I had at Disney, and I wrote a lot of jokes, not just the album, but lots of jokes. And yeah, I kill with my Disney material because I do a lot of impressions as well. One of the tracks on the album that we were talking about, I rap like Mickey Mouse over a Dr. Dre beat, and this is kind of a satire joke about this. I think Disney would be personified by like Mickey Mouse rapping like a gangster beat. And that ended up being the closer for my Disney routine at the comedy clubs, and I would just shut the club down. They would be in stitches because just hearing Mickey Mouse rap and say like lewd things was hilarious to the crowd. So yeah, comedy I think is always in my blood. Even acting, sometimes I get cast for some roles, and they're not necessarily comedy sometimes. And I just go in. I'm very much a character actor, and I get into it. And I'll just have the director, the cast, the crew, and everybody just saying, "Oh, you're so funny!" And like my intent sometimes isn't necessarily to be hilarious, but I think there's just something about my mannerisms, the way I move and do things, and get in the character that it's like, wow, that's really funny. So yeah, I think comedy's really in my blood. My dad's very funny, and I look like him, and I do a lot of things like him. And I definitely think I got that humor from my dad's side for sure.
And you're also a paranormal investigator, which
Correct.
that probably sticks out to me more than anything because it's a lot of questions I have about it. I did go and I watched a couple videos that you had. Because I kind of short on time, but I seen where you guys were. Was it maybe a theater that you guys were in?
Hmm.
And you said you could hear somebody. You could actually hear a voice in the video. I
Yeah.
mean, how do you get to the point that you're doing stuff like that? What made you say, "Here, I'm going to go and try to find these ghosts"?
Yeah, definitely. So again, I'd have to go back to when I was very young. My first experience ever, which I think started it, and my interest in it was I was 2 years old, stayed at my grandmother's house, which wasn't an uncommon thing. I did it often. But this particular time, I woke up at, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 in the morning, I'm guessing. It was very early. And my grandfather, who had passed away when I was 3 months old, was sitting in front of the bed trying to talk to me. And I freaked out, and he noticed I freaked out and started to leave the room. And as scared as I was, I followed him and watched him disappear through the dining room wall. Then I ran to my grandmother's room crying. I told her what happened. She's like, "Oh, it's just a bad dream. You can stay with me, whatever." My parents kind of downplayed it. And after that point, I actually started seeing a lot of different things, whether it was at home or when we went out somewhere. And because my family didn't believe me, I kind of shut down and was like, well, my family doesn't believe me. I don't know if anybody else is going to believe me, so I'm just going to stay quiet. And I'd say a good maybe like 8 years later, my family finally sat me down and said, "Hey, we didn't want to scare you. You were very little, but we've all experienced it." My grandma, when she was in Italy, had seen lots of stuff. And then my mom had seen lots of stuff. So I guess my family's kind of sensitive to that stuff. So that's kind of when I figured like my family had some sensitivities to it. And because they finally opened up, that just opened me up even more. And I was like, okay, I seem to find that some people are very sensitive and experience this stuff, and other people are completely clueless. They don't believe in it. They never experienced it. And that's one of my biggest questions that I've come up with theories about, but haven't really found a concrete answer for yet. But yeah, I started just buying books, studying the subject, reading about it, researching it. The internet wasn't big at that time, so you kind of had to do a lot of footwork to research and find stuff. So yeah, that's kind of where it started. And then eventually I met my best friend in high school who was interested in it. We started looking up haunted places in Southern California and beyond, and just kind of like really got into it and started a nonprofit. When I went to school, I studied psychology and parapsychology. Actually, I have my PhD in parapsychology, like my favorite character who Bill Murray played in Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
So and then we just started. We had a couple of mentors in the field who were really well known when we started out, and eventually we, like I said, built our own nonprofit, and people called us and emailed us and asked us to come check out their house or their business or their place of whatever it is, their property. And that's how we got into it. And it's just a passion of mine. I'm very interested in the unknown and why, again, certain people experience it and others don't. So that's my quest for truth, I guess.
Now, what is the whole process of going and investigating? Like, what kind of equipment do you need? Is there any prep work before you go? Uh, what do you expect to happen while you're there?
Yeah, definitely. So, the very first part of a potential investigation is talking with the client. So, they contact us, they say, hey, something's going on, what have you. And we have a series of questions we ask to make sure that they're sound of mind and we're not dealing with somebody who may be, maybe imagining things or exaggerating things. So, we have that list of things we ask them to make sure and validate that they're, have legitimate phenomenon going on. Once we've assessed that they're stable and we can help them out, then we'll start prepping for an investigation. We have tons of equipment. I'd say over the years we've acquired probably thousands of dollars worth of equipment. We have night vision DVR, camera systems we set up to try and capture any visual evidence that might happen. We have digital audio recorders, EMF meters, which measure the electromagnetic field. So the electromagnetic field is the whole Earth is surrounded by it. Everything has it. And if something disrupts that magnetic field, that's when potentially you could have something paranormal that's going on. So that's another piece of equipment. Full spectrum cameras, those cameras are modified to take in all kinds of light. So even light that a normal camera wouldn't see. When you take off certain filters on cameras, you can get that kind of stuff. And also my brother's a medium, so we usually use his abilities when we go to an investigation to test. The scientific method is what we use with our equipment, obviously, to try and capture it and replicate what the activity is. And then we have my brother as a medium come in and try and see what he senses, feels. And we all use our senses and feelings to see what we feel as well or experience while we're there. But my brother specifically communicates with the other side. So we usually bring him in to kind of see what he picks up. And what we do is to test that scientifically as well, is we don't allow him any access to information of the cases. He's not allowed on the property till we're done looking at it and seeing what's there. So we can test out to see if his abilities are also legitimate and he picks up on things that were reported or we felt or we captured. So that's kind of our process. And then usually we stay, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 hours, maybe overnight at a person's house, depending on the access to the property. And then usually it takes us about a week to go through all our video, audio evidence, and we'll come back to the client and say, we captured this stuff, this is what we think it is, or we didn't capture anything, but we had personal experiences. And as a side note, most of the clients, they just want validation that they're not crazy and what they're experiencing is really going on. So most of them aren't like, oh, it's a demon and we need like a priest to bless the house, In some cases that does happen, but it's not as common as TV makes you think or the movies make you think it is. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. And yeah, that's what we do.
Now, I'm not gonna lie. When I seen this on TV and stuff, I kind of always thought like, yeah, okay, well, they made a good TV show, I guess, And I didn't really have much belief in it. But then I had an experience one time, and just real in a, quick in a nutshell, over a period of a couple of days, I kept putting an object in one place, and every time I come back, it was in a different place. It took me a couple of days to figure out, like, hold up, something's not right. Nobody else has been here but me.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I've had the experience now, and it all this it really interests me more than it did before, because I do have a belief in it now.
Yeah.
But what is some of the craziest stuff that you come along, doing your investigations?
Yeah, we've been doing it for about 20 years now, and I've experienced quite a bit. Some of the crazier stuff, I would say. I've seen clients get scratches. We're sitting in their home investigating, and they'll say they'll feel like burning or something, and either their arm or they'll lift up like their shirt on the back, and you'll see like scratch marks, and it actually broke the skin. And it's weird because they don't. It seems like I've only had that happen a few times, but when it happens, they always say that they never felt it like happening. They never felt themselves getting cut. They felt once the skin was open, like you feel that stinging when the air hits an open wound. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay. And they weren't like massive scratches, but they were enough to break the skin, and you can notice that, something was definitely happening. So that is something that happened a few times, which is cool to see and to corroborate that it's the same experience for everybody experiencing it. You know what I mean? They all claim the same thing. They didn't feel it. It just kind of happened. Some of the more intense stuff, I know when I was younger, when we first started doing this, and one of my mentors in San Diego brought us out for a case, We were in this old Victorian mansion that got turned into a business building, and we were investigating. It was the summer of 2005 that this happened. I was working a grave shift job, but I also was doing a lot of acting. So I was like shooting films during the day, at night working a grave shift job, and then that day I had the day off. Ended up going out for this case in San Diego, spent the whole day out there and finished with this particular case in this Victorian building. And so we finished investigating. It was later in the evening. I went into the office of the person who called us in, and they had a really comfy couch. So I ended up falling asleep and knocking out because I didn't get sleep for maybe 2 days straight. And in that moment, I seemed to just appeared in the house, but when it looked way different. And I had seen a man and a woman struggling with a knife in the house upstairs, and there was 2 children present. The little boy was standing by the stairs. A little girl was in another room. And as they're struggling, I guess the mistress of the husband wanted him to leave his wife. So she grabbed the knife and said, leave her for me or whatever. And then he ended up getting the knife from her, and eventually he ended up killing her. But the little boy was also killed. But that was an accident. They didn't know that until I had that experience. So I'm watching this take place, the little boy standing by the staircase. And when in the struggle, they bumped him and he fell down the staircase pretty far, and his neck snapped basically, and he died. So I'm watching this happen. Again, it's weird. It's kind of like I time traveled, but out of my body. And I've never experienced anything like this before. And I transport into the boy as he's falling. And then I'm falling, and all of a sudden, within an instant, when he hit, like I woke back up in my body, but it was like somebody took a gun and shot through my entire body. Like it was one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. So I wake up, jolt right up, and I'm frozen for at least, 15, 20 seconds, or I can't breathe, I can't talk, nothing. My best friend who was with me and part of my team goes, "Hey, are you okay?" And finally I was able to talk and breathe again, and I was just like, I need to get out of this house. Like, I don't feel good. I just experienced something awful. Like, I'm just going to get out. That's all I can say. So we started walking out, and all of a sudden my friend collapsed on the stairs and starts sobbing. And he's like, "I just feel like this intense sadness. Like, it feels like a woman. She's very sad." And I was like, "Okay, dude, like, I'm sorry. I gotta step out. Like, I want to step away for a second." So we both step out of the house. He comes out finally, and we just talk about our experience. Both told each other what happened. And yeah, I almost quit investigating because of that. And I had just barely started because how intense it was. Like, I experienced someone's death, and it felt awful. Like, this little 7-year-old boy lost his life, and it was over in a split second. So I got a few days to rest. Finally, I did have a couple of days off. So I got to sleep that night when I got home from San Diego. And the next day I woke up and I was calmer. I wasn't as stressed out or freaked out of what happened. And there was a beautiful message in that experience, and that was the little boy basically said, live your life. I didn't get the chance to. So, do everything your heart desires, go after your dreams, like live life to the fullest, because I didn't get that chance. So I didn't quit the paranormal after that. I still pursued it because I'm passionate about it. And there was a beautiful message, even though there was a tragedy that occurred. So from what I've studied and know, that was what's usually called like either astral projection or an out-of-body experience, where your spirit leaves your body and you go experience something else. And the details I had of that experience, when I researched it, relate. Everybody says when you re-enter your body, it's like the worst feeling in the world. It feels like you were hit like by a bolt of lightning or shot or whatever it is. So that was definitely an intense experience early on in my studies and research and investigation of the paranormal.
Wow. That's heavy, man.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, man, did you have any new projects coming up?
Yeah, I got a couple things I'm working on. My biggest thing right now, and it's something I've been playing with for a long time, and I'm finally sitting down to do it because I have the time with the quarantine and everything. Basically, I'm working on a rap album about the paranormal. So yeah, I have most of it written. Most of the music is arranged. I'm still working on the project, but yeah, that's definitely going to be a major release that I'm working on. I'm excited about. It's kind of a concept like the Disney album, but dealing with the paranormal. I'm rap about UFOs. I'm gonna rap about ghosts and Bigfoot and Chupacabra and all the crazy things that you deal with the paranormal. So that's my biggest project. Something I want to do with the future with that, whenever obviously the restrictions are lifted and we can, perform again, as I am a performer. I like to do what's called like a ghost tour. At least I'm nicknaming it a ghost tour, where I want to like tour haunted theaters and clubs and venues and perform, and then afterwards do like a VIP experience with my fans where we investigate like the haunted location. So I think that'd be a cool idea, and I don't know that anybody's done that before. So that's one of the projects I'd love to really get off the ground when I have the ability to. As well as I'll be doing stand-up again soon whenever obviously the whole thing restrictions are lifted. I just got in contact with a great booker in Florida, and he wants to fly me out there to do some stand-up, and he's going to give me a chance, kind of like an audition, but I'll get paid for that gig as well. And then if that goes well, then I'm going to start touring with him as well and his companies out there.
Oh, man. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on here, man. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, best place, my main website is www.mcpierre.com. That's the letter M, the letter C, P-I-E-R-R-E. That's my main site. It has my music displayed prominently, but I have my paranormal connection there, my stand-up comedy. You can find all my stuff on my about page and everything I do. So that's the main site, and then my handles are @talented. That's talented with the extra ED on Instagram and Twitter if you want to keep up on my social media stuff as well.
All right, man. I really appreciate it, man. Guys, check him out. There is literally hours of content there. That's why I was just able to kind of skim over it a little bit, but there's literally hours of content there that people can check out of your work from all different aspects. You have you doing stand up. You have you stand on stage performing your music, your paranormal stuff. It's all there. So thank you so much for coming on here, man. And hopefully once you maybe when you get on Florida time, man, and get on Eastern time, maybe we can do this again. You ain't got to get up so early.
Yeah, that's fine. No worries. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.